partner.
I'm Graham Gagne.
And I'm Chelsea.
And this is Green Spiral Farm. We're here in the Arcata Bottoms.
Yeah, I think what inspired us to start the hedgerow planting is that a lot of the biodiversity has been taken away from this area with just the widespread grasslands, I guess. And we were just hoping to bring back more of that biodiversity and the just more wildlife and pollinators.
We've really noticed that every plant that is in bloom or has some height to it is creating a visible impact. Because it's not a abundantly diverse environment down here, there's really not that much to host different pollinator species or birds and other wildlife. And so we've been able to see even just one little corner where we let a bunch of California berries grow wild is all of a sudden an obvious host to different species of insects and birds. And so the idea of being able to put in something more significant with a broad array of bloom time that's able to host species throughout the year is really exciting to us. And it's the kind of area here where it's wide open, it's windy, and there's not much else available to host these populations. So putting something like this in is going to really allow a long-standing, more significant habitat that should be able to impact the farm year-round rather than just short periods of time while things are temporarily in bloom. We initially knew we needed to track down a significant amount of native plants and knew about Samara restoration. We reached out to them and talked to Troy, who's our nursery manager, and he was a real wealth of information. We were able to kind of consult about our different visions and what we hope to get out of this, which was significant wind block, as well as a host of different flowering species and potentially even some fruit. Could be fun for us to come nibble a couple huckleberries, but also to attract birds into the habitat. So they were really informative about strategizing a good way to lay that out with some of the broader plants in this back row here. The blue blossom and silk tassel and wax myrtle are kind of the backdrop of the hedgerow. And then up front, we have these red flowering currants and huckleberries, which will grow slower and need a little more protection as time goes on. So it was really nice to hear Samara has essentially built this pattern as something that they use as a standard in staggering these plants and closing in the backside and allowing some of the more sensitive fruiting plants up front. And so we were really grateful. We weren't experienced in this. We're really grateful to get their consultation, get those ideas, and talk about plant spacing and what seems to work.
That really the first step before talking to Samara was working with Kate Howard. Right. So we had met with her, and she was really great about coming out and doing a field visit and just kind of like walking around and mapping things out and asking us a lot of questions about like what is our interest in this project and like what points are we trying to hit as far as like bringing in pollinators. Or the wind block she gathered was really important here because we're in the bottoms. And so yeah, she was awesome about just asking a lot of questions and getting a clear picture of what the farm really needs. And then it was really easy. She just gave us the paperwork that we needed to set things up and was really fast about answering any questions we had. And it felt like a very open line of communication, which made it really accessible for us to start the project. Because what we had started out with was a really long list that Kate had given us and was like, just kind of invited us to research out of that list what would be most useful, but the list was really long, and so it was really nice to be able to go to someone local right in our area that could help like guide us on what really does well here and what would be the best for our climate. So it was awesome.
Our biggest concern with putting in this hedgerow was maintenance. We're really busy throughout the growing season, and just fighting weeds and grass through the summer months really doesn't feel like an option for us. So we wanted to implement a hedgerow where we are going to have some ground cover and some repression of the grasses and weeds, so that for the most part we're able to just let it grow and get on with our farming practices. That led us to decide to lay a strip of landscape fabric and basically open up holes in that landscape fabric, get our plants in, and then cover it all with a mulch. And that has turned out to make the weed pressure and grasses growing up around these hedge plants a lot less of an issue for us. It saved us a lot of work. I will say that if we are to extend this project for, say, this project here was about 200 feet, I believe. We have talked about doing much larger strips of pollinator rows. And in that case, I would be hesitant to put that much landscape fabric down on the ground. We may be thinking about simplifying, maybe just doing a perimeter of heavy wood chip mulch around each plant, something that's still going to repress those weeds, but not be such a significant strip of this synthetic material. And as we've learned, some of these native pollinators are going to want to burrow into the ground, and so I do have concerns about the landscape fabric being a barrier for that. Luckily we have plenty of other open spaces that are never disturbed on our farm that do host those species, but I'd like a more significant pollinator strip to really allow for that soil penetration from those species. So that's something that we've learned moving forward, especially on a bigger project. We are probably going to look for a way around this landscape fabric below our wood chips. It has helped a lot. It's a pretty impermeable barrier from anything coming up from below, but it has its limitations that we'd like to avoid moving into a bigger project. Really, it's these first few years where we're kind of up against the grasses and weeds growing back in, but I think probably 3 years after implementation, 3 to 5 years, we're not going to be experiencing as much open ground and room for those other plants to grow up.
Yeah, I think since it is still early, it's we haven't seen like as many benefits yet, but I have noticed just from working in this area, because we were doing a lot of harvesting in this field over here, that there's definitely a good amount of birds and hummingbirds and bees that are already gravitating towards this. And we saw our first blooms, just small first blooms starting this year, and we saw that they were already gravitating towards that area. So we imagine as this fills in, it's really going to be a beautiful host for them and like a resting place for them, and then as they move through the farm to carry that pollen and movement and biodiversity around the farm is really exciting. And then when you guys first came out here the first time, I thought it was super awesome how we saw the snake crossing through the field, and we were all like, wow, and just like the excitement from the whole group over seeing the snake. And that was the first snake I'd ever seen on the farm, and I thought it was really beautiful experience to see like you guys coming out here to check it out. We're seeing that like movement and just different wildlife coming to the area, so that was a cool experience.
It feels like if you build it, they will come, and we're in we just built it and we're seeing the first little migrants move in, and the beginning of a little colonization occurring. Even just with some of the ceanothus blooming last fall is like, oh look, you know, some little blue flowers, and then sure enough there's a bee and a little hoverfly passing by, and it's really small right now, but we're really looking forward to having this vast space to really bring all those species in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of already touched on this, but I think the most helpful part of the process was going to Samara and if that whoever that is locally for your area, to have like a specialist who really knows what grows well and creating that one-on-one relationship with them. I think that helped us a lot in the process to get it going.
And it's a total relief to just be able to talk to someone who's well familiar and has the insights, has seen these things play out over years. And due to the removal of a lot of the native trees and the kind of homogenization of this area where we're at here in the Arcata Bottoms, these kind of projects really go a long way. They're an obvious change to the kind of flat grassland. And so we're really excited to see just the host of different species we're going to bring in by putting in an area like this.
Yeah, I'd say that implementing native plants is a really good opportunity to give back to the land. As farmers, we're really we're harvesting and taking from the land, and I think it's a really good opportunity to give back and create that regenerative process that's so important about tending land and helps you manage and keep land in a good way that, you know, will be sustainable for generations. I think it's just like an amazing opportunity to take part in that part of farming as well. Yeah.